Namaskar, dear viewers. Today we'll be talking about mitigation of climate change. In the past session, we have discussed about the science of climate change and impacts of climate change. So today we'll be discussing about mitigation of climate change. We know fully well that by the year 2030, the average surface air temperature will be crossing 1.5 degrees centigrade. To address this issue of climate change, the countries and international bodies, particularly United Nations, through various measures and programs, strategies, asking every government, national government, even citizens to have a change in their attitude and also to take every step possible to address the issue of climate change through reducing greenhouse gas emission and also adapting themselves to the emergencies. Emergency means the climate change impacts. So in this regard, we need to talk about the ways possible, in what sector, in what region the mitigation of climate change is possible. So we know fully well that certain sectors are more responsible for causing climate change. For instance, sectors like energy, transportation, urban systems, buildings, and food systems. These sectors are very important as far as the emission is concerned, emission of greenhouse gas emission is concerned. So these sectors has a lot of potential to mitigate climate change. So with respect to the mitigation potential, the energy system comes first, thereafter the transport system. So today we'll be discussing each and every sector and what are the measures, mitigation measures that can be adopted in that particular sector. So to start with, we'll be talking about the sector energy. We know energy sector, as I said, that it is predominant as far as the greenhouse gas emission is concerned, and it is responsible for causing climate change. We know that the concentration of greenhouse gas emissions since industrial revolution is increasing very fast. The prime reason is industrial activity, or in other words, use of fossil fuels. The fossil fuel combustion has pumped in a lot of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So this energy sector can have a very important role to play as far as mitigation is concerned. And what kind of strategy? So when we talk about a mitigation strategy in energy sector, it should be broad-based in nature. That means that it must include all the components of energy system, all the energy resources, sources, and also there are many systems out there: renewable energy system, solar system, nuclear energy sources. So everything should be taken into account. That is, our strategy should be broad-based in nature. And the decarbonization, it should be deep in nature. When I say deep, it should be as much of the technology, whatever we are going to implement it should drastically reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. So this deep carbon reduction pathway is very suitable for energy sector. So going further, as far as the energy sector is concerned, there are three important aspects. One is the use of fossil fuels. When we talk about use of fossil fuels, we need to take steps to reduce the use of fossil fuels. That is the first important strategy. The second one is we need to use more and more of electricity and also energy carriers. I will be discussing in detail about the energy carriers in the coming slides. This is the second strategy, that is use of electricity. The third one is that whatever the resources we are talking about, energy resources particularly, those resources should be zero carbon sources or even low carbon. Zero carbon will be definitely better. Nevertheless, we should go stepwise, in a way that we are using since industrial revolution, since 1750, we are using more of fossil fuels. Slowly and steadily, we need to switch over to the green energy. So this switching over will definitely take a lot of time. So in that process, in that pathway, in that trajectory, we should look for the net zero emission. Net zero emission is a very good aspect. That it means that when you talk about net carbon dioxide emission, complete zero, it means that whatever the human activity that is releasing a lot of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, that should be captured by human activity as well. It means that the sources must equate to the sinks. So in this aspect, there are many energy sources, particularly the renewable energy sources. They have the potential to minimize the greenhouse gas emissions. Okay, as I told earlier, the key strategy is use of alternative energy sources, particularly renewable energy sources. Second is energy carriers. I mean, nowadays, if you see, there are a lot of new developments is happening as far as the energy carriers are concerned. The use of hydrogen, ammonia, green ammonia, that's a very fantastic thing. So these energy carriers should be used for transporting the energy. The network, I'm talking about the energy network, so that will be more sustainable if you go for this kind of energy carriers. And as far as the use of electricity is concerned, we need to use the electricity in the industrial sector for the space heating purpose and also for cooking. So everywhere, wherever it is possible, it's better to go for electricity. And that electricity, if it is generated from the renewable energy sources, it is absolutely better. And next strategies, if we go further, you talk about the energy systems. When you talk about the energy systems, definitely the integration of energy systems, that is a key aspect. When you integrate the many energy systems, particularly the renewable energy, there are different sources are there. If you integrate each and every component together, that will help us to achieve economic efficiency. And definitely economics plays a very important role as far as the tapping the energy, renewable energy sources are concerned. And definitely when you talk about the energy sources, we'll discuss one by one. The nuclear energy or hydropower energy, it has been well established fact that we have enough technology. As far as the solar PV is concerned, solar photovoltaic cell is concerned, we are developing much faster. Our technology is improving day by day, year after year. So in a way, the cost involved is, definitely it is more than the fossil fuels. Nevertheless, it is reducing year after year. So these technologies also we need to develop, and those green technologies has to be adopted as far as tapping the energy resources is concerned. The last one is a key aspect as far as the energy sector is concerned, is that how best we can sequester the carbon. Can you capture the carbon directly from the air? That is one technology. Yes, we can do it. And the second one is that the bioenergy related carbon capture and storage. So bioenergy as such, it is, it sequesters the carbon through the process called photosynthesis, and that bioenergy can be used for electricity generation. And in the process, whatever the emissions are there, it should be captured. Particularly the carbon should be captured, and thereafter it has to be stored deep inside the Earth's surface, geological storage, I mean. So these new technologies has to be adopted. By adopting these technologies, we will be in a position to reduce the carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere. And indeed, this is a very new development as far as the carbon dioxide capture is concerned. Next, when you talk about the energy sector, we have discussed many resources are there, fine. The most important aspect is that we are finding a lot of opportunities. When you switch over from fossil fuels to the renewable energy, definitely there are a lot of challenges are there. However, you can see there are a lot of opportunities also there in this energy transition. So the switch over can lead to a lot of economic opportunities for the stakeholders. So we need to capitalize those aspects also. As I already told you about the when you switch over or when you look for an energy transition, it is helping us to achieve most of the sustainable development goals, because each energy transition it is also having certain societal objectives. There are a lot of co-benefits involved in this thing. So in that way, this particular sector, the mitigation potential of this energy sector is paramount. Next, we'll go for the other system that's called urban system. When you talk about the urban system, for every one of us will be knowing it. The urban population is increasing. The growth, the trend of urban population is increasing, not only in India, elsewhere as well. And by 2050, we can have more of urban clusters. And this kind of growth definitely can have a lot of pressure on the urban system, urban environment. and there will be a lot of pressure on the infrastructure and also service demand, because the growing population will have a lot of demands from the urban resources. So this urbanization is as such it is a problem, but from the perspective of mitigation, it is having a lot of potential opportunities. When I say opportunities, because increasing urbanization on one hand, that can be combined with proper urban planning. When you go for a structured urban planning, that can help us to decarbonize the system, urban system. And also, it can help us to achieve greater, amount of resource efficiency. That is a key aspect that we need to take into account as far as the urban system is concerned. Going further, if you see the cities, particularly, the countries across the world, they have their own targets to achieve carbon neutrality. So in that goal, the cities play a very important role because they themselves are contributing to climate change. So in the process, if they have a proper zoning, urban planning, so definitely they can reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. And this very important aspect is that when you talk about urban system versus the mitigation option, we need to look for the kind of resources, urban source, energy sources. So we need to restructure it. So it's better to focus more on the renewable energy sources. It's better to have certain urban farm or urban morphology. When I say urban morphology, the kind of settlements we have if you're switching over from an informal settlement to a structured, proper planned settlement, that can help us to achieve more of resource maximization, use efficiency. And also, if you see in a proper urban planning structure, if you incorporate certain interventions like infrastructure, green or blue infrastructure, that can help us to achieve many benefits in particular climate change mitigation. And of course, we have other societal benefits like health of the citizens, urban dwellers. So they have a better health, healthy environment. So this is possible if we are in a position to incorporate green infrastructure in the urban system. In green infrastructure means the kind of vegetation we have in the parks, even the street dividers, if it is vegetated, that can help us to have a livable environment in the cities. And indeed, it can reduce the air pollution also in the urban areas. So one focus is on the kind of resources, the kind of energy use in urban system. On the other hand, how can we incorporate the infrastructure, particularly the green systems, green infrastructure, that can reduce the pollution, and at the same time it can have certain other benefits, like, for example, minimizing the effect called urban heat island effect. And also it can have better services that can be provided to the people. I'm talking about the ecosystem services provided by the urban, the green systems. So in this way, this urban system is having a lot of mitigation potential. And interesting aspect as far as the urban morphology is concerned or urban planning is concerned, it's better to have a compact system and the form of the urban environment. If it is very compact, the movement of, for example, the people who are moving from the residential area to their offices, if it is reduced, if it is minimized, then to a great extent the greenhouse gas emissions can be reduced. So it should be, the urban form should be very compact in nature, and the kind of distance traveled by a urban dweller, that should be minimized from their office to the residential area. So in this way, this co-location that we need to capitalize when you go for a sustainable planning. Further, whatever the kind of resources we are having that should be standardized, and it should be efficient enough. The kind of appliances we are using at home, residential complex, even in organizations. Second aspect is that it should be electrified. Electrification can help us to minimize the greenhouse gas emissions. Next, as far as the urban system is concerned, as I was talking about the cities, it should be very compact in nature. In that way, as I said, that the distance that traveled by the dwellers will be greatly reduced. Now, There are a lot of things that's happening in the urban setup. A lot of new concepts are coming up, particularly the green building concept. So when you talk about the green building concept, it's a very fantastic concept. Why? Because the building itself is going to reduce the emissions. So the kind of the materials involved in green building construction, the kind of whatever the materials used in the construction indeed, and also the environment, everything is having a kind of harmony with the nature. So this green building is a significant concept as far as the mitigation of climate change is concerned. And when you see in depth the system, urban system, we can have cities like, certain cities are developing cities, emerging cities. So for instance, if a city is developing, so from the scratch, the urban planning can focus on decarbonization. So the city is very new, it is emerging. So the planning should be in such a way that whatever the structures, whatever the infrastructure they're going to have, it should be decarbonized. So in that way, what happened, we will be in a position to reduce further the GHG emissions if it's for the new cities. If a city is a developed one, in that case, the strategy will be much different. So what kind of strategy? So we'll be fine-tuning the urban form, the morphology, the kind of buildings, where you'll be placing what. So this kind of fine-tuning those things also can help us in the final outcome to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. If a city is well settled for a very long time, it's a very old city, so then the focus should be on restructuring, retrofitting, so repurposing those things. So that will also minimize the greenhouse gas emissions. So this is about the cities, the development, how city development can have an influence on the mitigation potential. Okay. Now, we'll go for the other system, that is transport system. This transport system is a very important thing. Next to your energy system, the transport contributes in a huge amount to climate change. So the data says that around 8.7 gigatons of carbon dioxide equivalent is released, particularly from the transportation sector. However, the major contributor is the vehicles running on the roads. Road transportation is the most significant thing. It contributes to around 70%. When I say 70%, our focus should be on how to minimize the emission from the road transportation. So in this case, the major aspect is that if you are in a position to switch over from a fossil fuel run, that petroleum or a diesel run road vehicles, to an electromobility. Electromobility means e-rickshaws, e-scooters, even the electrical vehicles, battery operated vehicles, that can lead us to a better mitigation. Okay, so this electromobility should be taken in a greater stride, and definitely when you talk about electromobility, not only the battery operated electric vehicles, we need to look for certain alternative fuels also. Nowadays, if you see, the focus has been on green hydrogen, biofuels. So these advanced biofuels also can be incorporated in the road transportation infrastructure. So that definitely that can help us to minimize the greenhouse gas emissions from road transportation. And indeed, if you see the battery operated vehicles, battery electric vehicle operated vehicles, they have a lower life cycle GHG emissions, and that is very important when you compare with your fossil fuel run vehicles. And not only the cars, the scooters or e-rickshaws, even the vehicles, large vehicles, the trucks, those vehicles also can be run on certain alternative fuels. In that way, what happened, and we can change the face of transportation system. Second is, whenever you talk about an electric vehicle, then a critical issue comes to everyone's mind is that how we can recycle the rare elements, particularly the lithium. They are critical mineral resources. So when you talk about a mitigation of climate change from the perspective of transportation sector, this issue of recyclability, how to bring the concept of circular economy in recycling the the battery elements, particularly the lithium batteries. So that also come into picture, and we need to take all the steps possible to address this issue. Next is buildings. So when I talk about buildings, that is also equally contributing to climate change, because as far as the emissions are concerned, most of the aspects, the construction materials, see everywhere there is a possibility of emission of greenhouse gases. So in this thing, as far as buildings are concerned, what we need to look for is a strategy or a framework that's called Sufficiency, Efficiency, Renewability, SER framework. So whatever the codes we are going to develop in buildings, building codes, energy codes, so we need to take these three important aspects. One is sufficiency, the other one is efficiency, and renewable sources. So when you talk about sufficiency, it deals with the long-term impact. What kind of non-technological advancement that can minimize the emission from building? That's sufficiency. Efficiency talks about the short-term or near-term mitigation benefits. Okay, so this framework, SER framework, is very important for as far as the building domain is concerned. Next is definitely when you talk about the positives, we need to talk about the challenges also. With respect to buildings, there is multiple challenges are there. The most important challenge is the finance part. The limited finance also is creating a lot of problem. Second is that when you talk about the codes, the energy codes, building energy codes, we need to take the SCR framework into mind, and thereafter we have to build the energy codes. So in that way, they definitely can help us to have a positive building domain, building sector. Next is industry. Industry is a fascinating one because I've just talked about the industrial revolution, how important it is in producing valuable products to us even for running the economy of every country. However, this industry, since it is using a lot of fossil fuels, it is releasing a lot of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So now the time has come to look for certain alternatives or some other resources, energy sources that can minimize the environmental impact, or in other words, it can minimize the carbon footprint. So all along we were using fossil fuels. Now time has come to go for green hydrogen or green ammonia and other aspects. And particularly as far as industries are concerned, certain industries are very intensive, GHG intensive, like your steel, plastics, cement industry, ammonia industry. Who can forget about the Haber-Bosch process? Okay, so these kind of industries are very intensive in nature. So these industries should be prioritized. These industries should be focused to look for certain alternatives, particularly the energy transition. And in total, if you see in the industrial setup, we need to look for electrification. The electrification by itself can reduce the emissions. And when you talk about the industry, the landscape is very wide. For instance, if you're talking about a light or manufacturing industry, we can think about go for the biofuels. That will be better. If you have certain industries like pulp and paper mill industry, the strategy will be different because it started using more of pulp and pulp biomass. So in that case, the strategy of mitigation strategy will be quite different. In iron and steel industry, we will look for certain advanced biofuels, and even the green hydrogen also is in the pipeline, in the pipeline of implementation. And the next one is the food systems. When you talk about food systems, yes, it is contributing enough to the climate change because of the agriculture production activity. Every activity in a way or other, it is releasing carbon dioxide and other gases, particularly the methane and the nitrous oxide, into the atmosphere. So here, since it is contributing so much, it is having a significant mitigation potential. Food system. When I talk about food system, I am talking about agriculture, forestry, and other allied sectors also. So in this case, the focus should be on improved agriculture practices. Second aspect is sustainable intensification. Third is biodiversity conservation. And fourth one is payment of ecosystem services. And next is the forest management. So when I talk about these principles, these strategies, the bottom line is sustainability. When I say sustainability, whatever the processes, whatever the practices I'm talking about, that is somehow minimizing the impact on the environment. when I talk about sustainable intensification, I'm trying to talk about the productivity enhancement. From a piece of land, how much more you can produce. From unit use of any input, I'm trying to increase or maximize the output. So that is sustainable intensification. When we talk about biodiversity conservation, we know how biodiversity is important for the sustenance of agricultural system. So biodiversity conservation has a lot of co-benefits involved in mitigation. Next one is that I'm talking about the forest management. When you talk about forest management, I mean to say that how best we can incorporate scientific principles in the management of natural resources, particularly agriculture-based resources. I was talking about ecosystem services. When I talk about ecosystem services, there are so many species involved in agriculture system that are providing us many ecosystem services, particularly the regulating or provisioning services. So many services it is providing. So we need to have the concept of payment for ecosystem services. So that can help us to provide valuable benefits to the farmers. The farmers who are cultivating the crops on the land, they can incorporate certain new strategies, advanced strategies, so that strategies can increase the ecosystem services. If that is the case, the farmers can be provided certain benefits, economic benefits. They can even be provided with carbon credit, and the carbon credit can be marketed in carbon markets. So in this way, this payment for ecosystem services also can help us to mitigate climate change. Going further, when you talk about the concept of cultivation, the controlled cultivation is possible. So when you talk about controlled cultivation, see, it is a very significant aspect, because we have the inputs, whatever the inputs are there, it can be provided in a useful manner, right quantity, right amount, right time, so that can help us to achieve maximum possible output. So this food system is definitely a significant concept that we need to take into account. As far as the food system is concerned, now again there are a lot of changes there. So now no more the carbohydrate based foods. So we wanted to look for certain other alternatives, how best we can even generate the proteins from the plants. Plant-based protein is coming up on a large scale. Even insect-based protein is also coming up. So we need to look for certain emerging food technologies that can help us to achieve food security. So in today's session, we have discussed every sectors from the point of view of mitigation of climate change. Particularly, we have discussed the sectors like energy, transportation, urban systems, industry, and food systems. And in total, if you see these steps, these mitigation strategies help us to achieve carbon neutrality by the year 2070 for India. Elsewhere, if you see most of the countries in the world, they have fixed that the deadline as 2050. So these mitigation potential or mitigation strategies definitely will help us to achieve carbon neutrality at the right time. Thank you very much.